What's going on, folks? It's your boy again, Dr. Sean Thomas, back in the building, episode 81 of the Be More Today show. We are back in the building, and folks, 81 episodes. No, we were off last week because I had to run the NYC Marathon. Got that bad boy done, number 5 in the books. And I gotta tell you, folks, I'm out like Kobe. I think five is it. I told you guys I wanted to go out there and kill it, and I did. I felt really great. We had a team, Spartan Sundays. We went out there and rocked that race together, and it was really, really inspiring. 24 people out there, finished the race, all different abilities and skill sets and stories. And, you know, we've been in COVID for the last 18, 20 months. So coming out of that and seeing NYC explode was incredible. Shout out to everyone who cheered us on, who gave me a Dr. Sean shout anywhere during the course. It was infectious. And it always reminds me about every time we come together in New York City and we do this thing. No matter where you're from, no matter who you are, what you believe, skin color, whatever else, it's the one time during the year where everybody is one family. And as you go through the boroughs, you just get all kinds of love from anyone in Brooklyn, Staten Island, Queens, Bronx, Manhattan. It is why we love NYC so much. So shout out to everybody who completed the 50th anniversary of the NYC Marathon. Congrats to all of you guys, and welcome back to the Be More Today show. I miss you guys so much. It's a pleasure to be with you again. Again, the Be More Today show is that thing. We're in 46 countries. We're trending everywhere. And you can find us on all kinds of platforms, right? We're on YouTube. Our website, BeMoreToday.com, for my book, which is on Amazon, and our site, our swag store, which is popping right now. We got some new things in our swag store, so check that stuff out. And of course, we're on Facebook and Instagram. If you want to be part of our fitness group, we're also on Strava. So the Be More Today Strava page is up and running, off and popping. One more thing, we're actually having a Be More Today 40-day challenge happening in January. We do it every single year. And we had a Steps of Greatness thing in January. We're doing that again this year. So look out for that coming soon, January 1st, 2022. It's going down. My quote for today, folks, is simple as always. Your discomfort isn't always trustworthy. When you move beyond the safety of your comfort zone, you will not feel comfortable. That is where your growth lies. As someone who ran a marathon this past weekend, you can train all you want. Right, you can go out there. You can train. We've been training since May for this thing. We're training, and putting in all kinds of work. And nothing's as daunting as going out there and recognizing that you're about to do something that you haven't done either before or you haven't done in a very long time. And although you train for these things and you go out there and you put all kinds of work into it, sometimes things just go awry, right? And I didn't hit the time that I wanted this year. But looking at where we came from, coming out of COVID-19, coming out of not doing anything, quarantine, whatever else, it's amazing that 30,000 people got out there and finished this race. So whatever you're doing this year, if it's something like a marathon, or you trying to go out there and write a book, start a company, do something that's out of your comfort zone, just recognize that it's going to be uncomfortable, but that's really where your growth lies. You can't get any stronger unless you start to do things that don't feel right. And for the last 6 months, 5 months, my team's been training, and everyone's been training just to get to this thing that did not feel comfortable, but now all makes sense. So keep putting the work in, keep pushing, keep grinding, and continue to do things outside your comfort zone to be more today. My guest for today, folks, is someone who I think embodies that. He's a good friend of mine, a good classmate of mine, and now a great colleague of mine. His name is Dr. Clifford Civil. Now, Clifford Civil was born and raised in Brooklyn. As a young boy growing up in the urban community of Flatbush, Brooklyn, he had a natural attraction to athletics and sports, but enjoyed basketball the most. He played basketball recreationally throughout the years, but played football for a short stint in high school prior to relocating from New York to the metro Atlanta area of Georgia. Dr. Civil grew up in a loving and nurturing, yet strict Caribbean household, which highly influenced his continuous pursuit of higher learning and a profession in healthcare. In 2010, he earned his Bachelor of Science degree in exercise science from Georgia State University in Atlanta, Georgia. Soon after, in 2013, he earned his Doctor of Physical Therapy degree from SUNY Downstate, my alma mater, Downstate Medical Center in Brooklyn, New York. Dr. Civil he gels together his affinity for movement and his natural compassion for others in the care of his patients. Dr. Civil has several years of extensive experience treating patients in private clinics with various orthopedic and sports-related injuries. In addition, he has years of experience providing physical therapy for patients in their homes. Lastly, Dr. Civil is experienced with fitness and wellness training dating back to 2010, when he was formally certified as a health fitness specialist by the American College of Sports Medicine. Dr. Civil is the founder and owner of his own firm titled Civil Physical Therapy, which he originally started in 2017, but did not truly break ground until 2020. Civil PT was created with the main objective of providing a healthcare delivery model that's convenient, results-driven, tailor-made, and most of all, patient-oriented. In addition to treating patients and managing his company, he enjoys learning new skills, reading, completing DIY projects, traveling and exploring new places and cultures, and staying active by regularly exercising. Dr. Civil believes in spreading the love the Brooklyn way. He takes a sincere interest in others and a passion about giving back is his main thing. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and as always, pets included, welcome to the stage, my boy, episode 81, Dr. Clifford Civil. Dr. Civil, what is going on?
Sean, Dr. Sean, thank you for that introduction. Too kind. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Happy to be here. We're here, man. What can I say? That's what I could say. We're here.
Yes, sir. We are here. We are here. And you know, a lot of people probably don't know this, but you and I are colleagues. We work together. We played ball together. We went to school together. And you know, when you're in grad school with somebody, because you know what it's like to go through that rigorous regimen of learning and training and studying this thing, it's like going to battle. So when you see people, you know, past that and they're practicing and you reminisce on all the time, you just say, man, we got that together. And you know, every time I see you, I think about those experiences. And we played ball together, which was probably one of the highlights of my grad school tenure, playing basketball with you and some of our other friends and winning championships, right? That's what we did. So
that's right.
You know, I really appreciate those times, from grabbing lemonade to Watch the Throne. And it's just awesome to reconnect with you. And I'm just happy to have you on the show because you're doing great things in your community. And I want to highlight that today. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So Dr. Civil, I know that you and I have crossed paths many ways throughout the years. But you know, now that you are in this very unique place as being the owner of your own PT clinic and company, I was kind of curious to know, you know, as an athlete and as a therapist, there are certain things that we contribute to our clients' plan of care and to our practices that are different than someone who might not have that experience. And I'm always curious for those who have been athletes or have been involved in athletics, you know, how athletics paved the way through your academic or your professional career. So what was it for you? What was it about, you know, your football, your basketball exploits that helped you apply what you learned in those endeavors to what you're doing now in your community?
That's a great question. Great question, Sean. So I think for me personally, as you read in my bio, playing basketball, football, discipline is number one. Discipline, the discipline you get from, you know, having to show up on time for practices, for games, having to put your grandest effort all the time. That has to be number one, probably the biggest thing that I pick up from the world of athletics. I mean, you got to be disciplined to participate when you don't want to. You got to push through despite whatever's going on with you internally or externally. I think that's one of the biggest things for me that I took from the world of athletics and integrated in my studies and being able to complete and finish. And I think another one that really comes to mind, there's so many, by the way, but discipline always, as mentioned, that's number one. And another thing that's popping in my brain now is, I think, just being able to deal with other people, whether we want to call that emotional intelligence, just interpersonal relationships, going through conflicts, because they will present, whether you're dealing with your fellow students, But certainly when you're dealing with your professors, sometimes people see things a certain way. They ask of you, you might think, these things were very, you got to know, you got to have emotional intelligence when you're dealing with, in the world of athletics. You're dealing with basketball and football are team sports. So you obviously have to deal with your colleagues and deal with the people who have rank, for a lack of better ways to describe it, over you. So you got to know how to merge those things, respect yourself, respect the others, and, approach conflict as necessary, but in a professional way, you know, in a constructive way, not a destructive way. And I think those are huge. Dealing with people and everything that comes with it, and discipline, huge.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's funny because I never thought about it as being a team. Although we will talk about, every morning I write email to my team, my coworkers saying, "All right, good morning, team. Here we go." And I say it because I'm from that mindset, as you are, being part of a team, working with people. But it is very poignant to recognize that not everyone knows how to be on a team. Not everyone knows what it means, like you said, to be able to respond to certain people and interact with certain people and to work with different people. But you learn the kind of stuff in grad school, doing projects. You learn kind of stuff on the football field, basketball field, doing plays and playing games and winning and losing together. So people who haven't done those things, like you said, the discipline might not be there because sports is all about that. And when it comes to your work environment, the businesses that are most successful are disciplined in the sense that they're taking care of the ins and outs. They're making sure that they hit all the details, that they're not making mistakes, right? And hitting all the platforms and landmarks so they can be successful. But like you said, there's also this concept of people working together. And I think a lot of people who have a hard time saying, well, I can't work with that person, or I can't work with that person, means that they might not have that sense of team. Because whether you like it or not, when you play in basketball, whether I like you or not, I got to patch the ball, and vice versa. Otherwise, we're going to lose the game. You know what I mean? So I do think a lot of that comes from, like you said, the discipline and that ability to interact with everyone. Because when you can do it on the court because you want to win, you should be able to do that also in the clinic or in the world of life because you also want to win. And I think some people lose sight of that. They lose sight of that.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad you brought those things up. And listen, I know that when we played basketball, you were our point guard. So you had a very keen sense of trying to get everybody involved because that was your main job. You could score if you wanted to, but also helping to facilitate to get everybody else involved to make sure that everyone worked together as a team. And I'm sure that probably played a role in terms of you wanting to start your own company, which has been Civil PT, being the person who's now running their own thing. Talk to us about what Civil PT is and what inspired you to start it.
Absolutely. So Civil PT, it's been a long time coming. So taking it back in my undergrad years, when I was studying at Georgia State University for my exercise science degree, I was working under a physical therapist. His name's Kirk McDonald. He owned his own practice, and I saw very early on what private practice was, small business. So I was very inspired by that. And I kind of held that with me and, obviously finished undergrad, finished grad school, got my PT degree. And instead of jumping directly into private practice, I wanted to, get my feet wet, so to speak. So I went and I got a couple of years of experience working for other small practices in New York City, Manhattan, Brooklyn. And I basically got to the point where I felt like there was always growth. I always had like pinnacles or stages that I set for myself. So coming in, I was, new grad. I wanted to first develop a rapport naturally with patients. So when I started getting a lot of positive reviews on Google, on Yelp and such, that increased confidence. And then when I started having people under me working in these clinics, actually, hold on, let me take a step back. So before I had people under my management, I was hosting students. So when I had students come in doing their internships and I got a lot of positive feedback, a light bulb clicked off to me. I'm like, well, okay, I guess I'm doing something good. I'm getting positive feedback. People like what, management, leadership, whatever you want to call it. People were responding positively, students. And then I took that up to management. I got a clinic director job. And that was a success just based off feedback from people, not even myself. It's just what I was getting from people, whether I was managing them or the people that were above me telling me, oh, this is looking good, blah, blah, blah. So all these things increased confidence. And I just got to the point where I was like, okay, I think my confidence is up here. And even if things don't work out, like, I'm not scared. Once I have that confidence, I'm going to go out and see what it brings. And here we are.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Listen, I know it's well, I'm saying it's nerve-wracking because as I've shared on my previous shows, I'm in the process of probably going that same direction sometime next year. And, just thinking about the journey that I've taken to, like you said, go through that same premise or the same process of seeing people gaining confidence, recognizing that there's a skill set that, everyone can graduate from PT school, but there are certain people who share different innate ways to connect with people. Because anybody can show somebody an exercise, anybody can show somebody how to do scap retractions or chin tucks or whatever else, but there's a certain trust that comes with the patient PT experience where that person puts all their trust in you and you actually care about how they're going to be doing, like how they're going to be functioning, how they're going to be progressing, to the extent where it almost becomes like a family situation where they're trusting whatever you say they're going to do, and there've been times sometimes where I've been like, I've done something just for fun, just to see if they're going to do something, and they'll do whatever I tell them to do because there's a trust factor in there because they recognize that when I did this as per your instructions, Sean, I got better. So every time we do, I'm going to do. And I think a lot of people, a lot of therapists, especially nowadays, don't always have that sense of care, that sense of wanting to make sure that every patient gets that quality care. And even in today's society, when it comes to healthcare, it's sometimes hard to really deliver that, right? When we're talking about numbers and we're talking about caseloads and we're talking about reimbursements and insurances and what you have to see to make up for what you're putting out there, it sometimes becomes difficult to give that one-on-one extra care to every single patient. So, when I see people like you who said, I want to go out and do this on my own, a number of questions come to mind. And the first question I have for you is, looking at what's happening now in the healthcare system, right? Looking at even coming out of COVID-19 and recognizing that there's so many things that are uncertain, right? In terms of businesses closing and hospitals being certain ways, how comfortable has it been or is it for you being, the sole runner of your own practice in today's society, the post-COVID, I guess we're still in COVID, but the post-quarantine, coming out of quarantine, out of COVID time right now where healthcare is so interesting, insurances are so picky and almost stingy when it comes to reimbursements and whatnot. And everything is so much about numbers. How are you, as the sole runner of your company, maintaining, managing, and staying afloat and staying positive during this very different time in healthcare?
Great question. Great question. So what I do, you touched on a lot of good points, showing the current state of healthcare for us. What I try to do is I try to stay in the middle, so to speak. And I like to look at myself as a bridge, if you will, where we're merging all these ideas into one. So I'm not 100% numbers, and nor am I ignore numbers. It's all about this, quality care, Not to say that I ignore either. So what I try to do is I really manage time. As best as I can in the delivery of healthcare. So knowing that I have these demands, whether working for myself or working, in the previous clinics that I've worked for, I really manage the clock. really well. So when you have all these demands, and you don't want to shortchange a patient, but you also need to obviously keep the bills paid, so to speak. You gotta just, I think the biggest thing that you have to focus on is your time management. And so every minute counts, every second counts. It's all, and then, like we were talking about earlier, Sean, um, uh, the comparing everything to sports or athletics, it's very much like a game that I'm playing in my mind. It's like, you got 2.5 seconds on the clock and you got to go down the length of the court. That's plenty of time. We could do something in 2.5 seconds, so it's that mindset that I take, and I really use it to my advantage. And I've seen it work really well for me and the therapists that I have to manage, as well. So it's huge time management. Um, you asked about how I kind of stay afloat now that I'm in private practice by myself. So when I started right before we really broke ground in 2020, as you read. I started very conservatively. And what I mean by that is I don't have a physical location yet. I don't have a brick and mortar space. What we do is we provide concierge and mobile services, within places of convenience for the patient. So that could be their home, their office, or a gym. And starting off like that, starting off conservatively, allowed me to not feel the same pressure that I would have if I started with a brick and mortar space right away, where you got rent, you got utilities, you got all these, you got your overhead, which is here, and then you got COVID and stuff like that. That's that's shaking things off. But because I started conservatively, it allowed me to kind of go slowly, if you will, go gradually and kind of feel things out. So I don't feel that pressure. And we're still very much in the early developmental stages, which is good because, slow and steady wins the race, right? And that's kind of the concept that I follow. And I've been able to stay above water, for lack of better ways to describe it, with all that in mind.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I know a lot of my other friends who are in private practice have shared the same sentiment, everyone's using the word pivot. They had to pivot this way and pivot that way to just make sure that they were still doing what they had to do. And some people closed for a little bit and some people stayed open, but everyone adjusted to what was happening around them and has been successful. So, I applaud everyone who, whether it's PT or not, has used this time to pivot and find other ways, convenient ways, creative ways to continue to do what they want to do and have been doing to provide their services to others. And you have been doing the same. So I applaud you for that. And I know that in your bio, you talked about Civil PT delivering convenient results, right? Results driven, tailor-made, and most of all, patient-oriented. And I know that, sometimes when it comes to physical therapy, for those who still don't know what physical therapy is, and I think I've done a good job on the show telling you guys what we do, but some people still know about PT, they put us in various categories, from chiropractic to personal training to health and wellness to whatever else, right? And I think a lot of people have a hard time believing that what we're trying to tell them to do, although it very much seems mundane and basic in the beginning, is for a greater good or a bigger picture or a bigger purpose, right, down the line. So, what do you do in terms of keeping your company and keeping your model patient oriented, and how do you reinforce the ideals effectively in terms of I say you don't have a physical space, so I'm sure you must get somewhat creative in terms of how you're giving care to various people in various ways. How do you do that so seamlessly, especially during this time of COVID-19, where it just seems still like people, depending on what state you're in, clearly, are either still like, yeah, stay away from, I need my space, or they're like, come on in. How's that experience been for you in terms of still trying to give this quality of care to people, either in their houses or in gyms or what have you, still during this time where people are still somewhat guarded and on somewhat alert with COVID-19?
Sure. It begins and ends with the patient, honestly, and speaking, conversing with them, and seeing what his or her responses are, respecting what they say, whatever you get from them. It all starts with good communication. It's just conversation, it's speaking, and like I said, respecting what they what they say. So for instance, if I would go in and I'm doing an evaluation, it's like everything else, whether I'm seeing a patient in the clinic, in my previous jobs, or what I'm doing now. And it's really just going and having a conversation with the patient from the minute you set foot in the door. You ask questions, you ask, may I? It's really, it comes down to manners and just respecting, again, what people say. You'll have people that want something this way or want something that way. And again, what I could say is just, it's really communication. It's really asking a lot of questions. It's really paying attention to them, paying attention to body language, paying attention to what's being said, how it's being said, and monitoring how you come off as well. My physical presentation, how it could be, how it could be received by someone. There's so much involved. And I take it back to that earlier point about relationships and interpersonal connection, and it's also, I haven't had that experience yet, but it's also being able to see whether or not this will work as well, because again, it's a relationship, and seeing if you're the right fit. Again, I haven't had this experience yet, but I know that I'll be happy to discontinue if that is what makes sense for both the patient and myself. And I'm speaking from the lens of a practitioner, but this is what I express to people that work under me and, under civil physical therapy as well. So it's communication, it's that relationship, really. And it's every single thing you do. It's everything, how you present yourself, how you look, all these things factor in. And then when you use these concepts, if you will, your approach, you'll find that you are doing patient-oriented care. You know what I mean? It's really about that person in front of you. And I try not to bring, how could I say this? I try not to bring myself, if you will, into what's going on, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
I try to withdraw as much as I can, try to get from the patient, and there's only so much, right, that you could take. Like, I'm not saying I'm going to allow someone to verbally abuse me, right? But I try to be cognizant of however I can present. Again, it's really relationship based.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think a lot of people, especially about new grads, a lot of new grads come out and they don't have that sense of, especially people who are in this stage of life where it's a very internet-based society, right? Where patient or people interactions are not what they used to be, right? So your ability to read someone's body language, your ability to read someone's facial expressions, those are all things that I think our generation had a better understanding of, just because we had to really sit and talk and interact with people and be able to vibe with people. But nowadays, with social media and whatnot, there are certain skills that people aren't able to really practice, or don't have to really even practice at all when communicating with people. It's not so much about what you're seeing and doing with someone, it's more about what you're typing in. So when it comes to, like you said, these interactions with people, that first impression, that first interaction with somebody, that's huge, right? Because that can really lay the foundation for, am I going to trust you and whatever you say for the rest of our sessions together? And if that first impression is a bad one, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. But if it is a good one, like you said, like I said earlier, that person will trust anything you say. And it's in those situations where people just see tremendous progress, because now you can get them to do the things that you know they need to do. For someone who hasn't been down that road before in any capacity, whether it's been an injury or some kind of trauma, what have you, with surgery, now they're going to make sure that they put their life in your hands. And after that, the progression of progress is fantastic. So I think that is something that every clinic should be doing. And the fact that that's at the pinnacle of what you guys do with Civil PT is great. I've had the opportunity to work with some of the patients under your company, and the ones that I have spoken to were ecstatic. I mean, one person always almost said that she was like blessed by God that she interacted with you, because at that time when she connected with you, what her mom needed was something that was just incredible. You know what I mean? So the fact that you're putting your brand out there and it's recognized not just as a brand that's quality care, but also a brand that people recognize as a caring company. I think that sets it above any other business that's trying to do the same kind of a thing. I think that's what sets you aside from others, that you're actually putting out there, like you said, patient-oriented, quality care for the community. And that's what Be More Today is really about. Going beyond to make sure people get better and giving back in ways that are not always counted in terms of dollars and cents, but make a bigger difference in the bigger picture of the world. So
Yeah,
kudos to you, sir, for that.
absolutely. And if I could just add to that real quick, Sean, what I find one of the biggest things, another another facet that came to me, which allowed me to jump off into business, is the fact that I really don't feel like it's either or. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think you can have both. I think you can do well from a financial business standpoint, straight down to the numbers, and you do not have to compromise your ideals of quality care. I think it's creativity using this, and you can really gel the two. I really, really believe in that. And to the point, if you an experience, a positive one, like you just mentioned, that, word of mouth is still the biggest form of marketing, if you will. So you do really right by one person. That's your business is, without me having to go advertise, actually, that's a good point. I don't even do too much marketing. Most of my patients are referral, word of mouth from other patients or some of physicians that I know that trust me with my services and leadership, and it just works out. And it's really starting with that, the care, as you mentioned, the patient in mind. And you can do really, they're not mutually exclusive, I promise. And business doesn't have to be slimy either. I don't, or feeling like, it's weird. It's like, we do things, yes, we get paid, but we're not doing it just because we get paid.
Right.
The person at the other end really matters. Number one.
No, I'm glad you brought that point up. And piggybacking on that, I guess my next question for you would be, there have to be some challenges. Although you've streamlined the things that are great, I know there are some challenges when it comes to private practice, because every company and every business has challenges. So what are some of the challenges that you face being in private practice?
Great question. As you mentioned, every business has its challenges. Well, for now, as I mentioned, I started off very gradually. So I need to, in order for me to scale right now, I'm actually slowly growing, but being that I'm kind of like the force, I do a lot of everything behind the scenes. I'm going to be stretched too thin if I continue in this way. So I have to, but I'm very much like that. Like, I want my hands here, control this. But in order for me to do anything substantial and grow the way it should, I need to enlist the assistance of others, by way of an office manager, by way of other directors and such. So that's huge. We haven't touched on this, but the business model is Civil PT is largely out of network. We are in network with Medicare for the most part, as an insurance carrier. So there is challenges where I do get a number of referrals. Most people are insured. This is America. Most people have health insurance in some capacity. And there's challenges sometimes where I have to have the conversation and tell a patient or someone who is calling on behalf of a patient that we don't, we're not a network with your insurance carrier. So in order to move forward, you would have to be willing to pay cash. There's that. So, and it sucks sometimes. It's probably one of the bigger challenges present day because, you know, it's, you almost feel compelled because you're getting a referral directly from a physician or by way of a previous patient, you know, so someone is vouching for you, and now they come to you, and now you got to say, oh damn, I can't I can't produce. And, you know, that drives me insane because I'm like results oriented. I want to, no, there's a solution. I gotta, you know, there's no, we got to figure this out. So what I do, because my brain operates that way, I like to give them a referral. So I'm like, sorry, we're not a network. I'd love to work. I want you to get better. Again, it's always about the patient. So even if it's not with civil PT, there's JAG 1, there's motion, there's spear physical therapy, um, all these other physical therapy practices, excuse me, within the larger New York City area. So that, you know, someone will say, well, that's not, probably not the greatest thing for business, but I actually think of it, I think of it the other way. I think it's, again, from a relationship standpoint. I don't just look at the number, okay, that's one not going to civil PT, but that patient, again, the universe works in your favor when you do the right thing. And I'm of that that way of thinking. You know what I mean? So those are probably the biggest challenges. And another one that I didn't mention, so if but it's still along the same concepts with dealing with insurance, is if it's before I refer them out, I do everything that I can to obviously keep them in. And what I will do is I'll make a plea at times to their insurance and to the insurance carrier, asking for what's called a gap exception or a gap extension, which basically allows, if the insurance approves, it basically allows the insurance carrier to receive civil physical therapy as an in-network provider for a set authorization period of time and visit number, visit count, and go from there. That will allow us to see, again, that will allow us to see the patient for a temporary period of time if they approve. But not all insurance carriers are amenable to that. So those are the biggest things, biggest challenges.
Gotcha. Listen, you know, I'm always curious because you know went to the same school together, clearly. And you work for similar companies in terms of the way they operate. But you've clearly gone to private practice before I did. And although it's on my agenda, you know, and I've talked about this on the show before, you know, there's certain things that I still don't feel like I'm ready yet to go out there and do, because I'm still learning about not so much how to run things, because you get that as a director, but more about just how to run the business, run the company, you know, and to do the things that are kind of like you said, behind the scenes. Where did you learn all these things, and what's your advice for, you know, people who are like me in this boat where they're on the verge of trying to be where you are, but they haven't taken that last or the final step yet to get there? What are some of the things that you'd like to share, if anything? Now, I guess in hindsight, because you've kind of gone past, you know, this stage, this phase, in terms of what you would need to, you know, get to that level where you're running your own thing and sharing some of the things that, again, aren't taught in the classroom, but you've kind of learned, you know, in your experience.
Sure, absolutely. Great question. I think what really, so the final hurdle, if you will, that really solidified my decision to go off on my own when I said, okay, tomorrow I'm going into the job, into the office, and putting in my generous 4 weeks of leave, of resignation. The final hurdle was, it was really math, Sean, to tell you the truth. It was really me. Some of these financial gurus talk about freedom number, your freedom number. What is that? Your freedom number is basically, for those that don't know who are watching, Basically the number or the amount of money really that you need to make to allow yourself to function. Once you find that number, right, there are ways to rework that number, to break it down, to modify it. But once you find that number, that's really key, because that'll be the driver, whether it's $5,000 or $1,000 on a monthly basis, right? Once you have that number, you can kind of play around with seeing if you can create that number to satisfy your lifestyle. Once you address that, you can go. So what I did was I found ways to reduce the barrier to entry by reducing the freedom number by lifestyle changes and such. Basically bringing the cost down, your lifestyle cost down, and while you're working, you jump off on the side, you start your side business. So that's what I did. I had Civil PT kind of going while I had a full-time job. And then once I saw that I'm able to, I'm basically able to earn what I need to survive, and it's not like luxury survive, like literally just your survival costs. Once you find that and you're able to meet that, then why not, right? It's like, why hang on to what I have if I know that I can, at worst case scenario, I can make this amount, which will pay my bills, or my share of the bills, me and my wife. Once you have that, you can move forward, and it really is like, it's illuminating, for lack of better ways to describe it. It's like you really see the light at the end of the tunnel. So that was huge for me. That's one piece of the question, but I'll be remiss if I didn't talk about learning and dealing with insurance. One of the biggest things that I've picked up as a clinic director working for a company is, sure, you get leadership. I grew in that aspect of managing a huge department of 30 employees. So that gave me obviously a lot of confidence just in people management, whether they were clinicians, whether they were administrative, or whether they were, assistants doing ancillary work. That was cool, but you can kind of get people management in whatever you do. Specific to physical therapy and what we do, I really picked up a lot. I was fortunate to work with one of the top administrators, if you will, of the company. And she had her office right in our clinic. So I picked up a lot from her, and I really learned, how to bill insurance, how to, authorizations, such, it has to go in a certain period. I really picked that up, and that was huge, because if I didn't have that experience, I probably would not know how. I would probably just be strictly cash pay. I'm not dealing with insurance. I'm not going to request no gap exception, like I mentioned to you earlier. I would, if it wasn't for that experience, I would just be cash. I'm not dealing with insurance at all. But you really can't, honestly, in physical therapy in America. Even if you are strictly cash pay, you don't accept nothing. As I mentioned, I do accept Medicare. You still need to know how to deal with insurance, because you're providing physical therapy services, which is well regulated in this country. So it's healthcare. You got to know how to. You can't. There's no such thing as not having, I want to say, a relationship with no insurance. Because as a matter of fact, with the patients that do pay cash, if they have insurance, I still submit the healthcare claim for the interventions that we've done. I still submit it to the insurance carrier. So they are always involved, whether you like it or not. Mm. So that was a huge thing for me, Sean. And I'm glad you asked that, because it allowed me to reflect on that time when I had the urge, when I wanted to venture off, but I needed to solidify some things and get some things in the right order to allow me to jump, if you will. Yeah. So that was huge.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that with me, and that's great. And I know you've done extensive work in terms of learning the business, especially on the insurance side, but you've also done a great job of connecting with your community. And I'm always curious when people in whatever realm we're talking about professionally, are always able to give back to the community in any kind of way. Because for me, it's very, very important. And it always has been since I was a kid. And I try to instill that even in my daughter. But for you, sir, why is giving back so important to you in terms of your community? And when did that really become a part of your platform, not just as a therapist, but also as a person?
It's a really, really good question. And it's probably a deep question when I really think about it. I think I want to tie it to just my upbringing. Um, as you read in my bio, I grew up in a Caribbean household. We're Haitian. Both my parents are Haitian. Um, they immigrated here from Haiti in their late 20s, and conceived myself and my siblings here in New York, in this country. And I think it's just coming from not having not having too much, for lack of better words. We weren't born with a silver spoon. um, I think that was huge. I think really, there's so many layers to it. I think would I get a lot that I picked up from my father. Just my father was a very compassionate person. Um, both my parents are, but as I reflect on my dad, he's always going out and doing what to everyone, for everyone, I should say. Very selfless. And I think a lot of that, as they say, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. I think innately I kind of picked up a lot of that, because it's not anything that I really process cerebrally. Sean, is just like, this is what I feel like needs to happen. It's more like a feel, and not something that I'm really contemplating logically. Um, before I became a clinic director, and obviously jumped off into private ownership of business, what I was doing when I had more more luxury of time is I was doing a lot of charity work, and I guess it continued, actually, um, in some vein. But if I take it back prior to what I just mentioned, prior to me becoming a manager or an owner, I was almost every week I was donating time and services to New York charities just throughout. I wanted to have, it was just something within me. I just wanted to be able to, I work, that's awesome. I work Monday through Friday, and then the weekends, at least one day out of the week, one day of the weekend, I would go and do some type of charity work, whether it's working with kids or, donating clothes, what have you. There's a New York charity website. I can't recall what it is off the top of my head, but I was doing that for a period of time. And then what continued after, having more, leadership roles, I didn't do that as much, but I was fortunate to, I want to say up until, right before 2020, where the New York City Marathon got canceled. I was pretty much every year I was a medical volunteer. That we didn't get a chance to get Dr. Sean in my tent, but after completing his 100th marathon, but yeah, those are little ways. And I actually also had the opportunity of working in Haiti twice now, in 2012 and 2016, volunteering physical therapy services for the people that need. So to answer your question, Sean, I don't know. I think it's one of those things where your upbringing, your culture, what I received from my parents just innately creates this drive, this drive to be more today, no pun intended, to really, I don't know, to just really give as much, if I can, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What I can, as much as I can. And that's really what it is. I can't really say why. It's just within me. I don't know.
It's great. It's great. And the fact that it is innate is something that, I really applaud. Clearly, I think a lot of people get bogged down with feeling they have to give back or they should give back. Even companies, who try to find ways to give back in the community they're not really organic, right? Sometimes it's forced, but in your situation, it sounds like everything that you've been doing and have been doing sounds very much like it's from the heart. And I think that's just always the best way to do it. And I think for me, that's what really Be More Today is kind of about, just showcasing people who are doing those kind of things. And sir, you are the 81st person on this show that we've highlighted for being great in their community and doing amazing things. So the phrase Be More Today means something different to everybody. But I'm curious to you, Dr. Civil, when you hear the phrase Be More Today, what does that phrase mean to you?
It's a great question. It's amazing. I think, again, just my personality is I want to, if we take the example of when I touched on how do we gel the constraints of running a business financially with giving quality care, and I answered with time management. Well, I really like to, when we think of the concept of being more today, you can't be more today without great time management, right? Because in order for you to be more today, you're loading, you're adding more. We're not taking off, we're not taking off like, oh, I'm not doing that, I'm just gonna chill. No, we're adding. So in order for everything to make sense and for things to gel and for you to conquer everything that you set out to conquer, you really need good time management. And it's really, you talk about with basketball or football, whatever, it's really just seeing how I can take this moment of time here and maximize it to the largest degree possible. You know what I mean? That happens in a clinic, whether you have two patients coming in at one, you don't want to deny them. Okay, I'm going to set this patient up. You are going to do 8 minutes precisely on the bike. That's it. Allow me, this guy doesn't need that much manual work. I can go, we're going to do a quick stretch within 8 minutes. And it's really, it's not for everyone. I'll say that, but those who carry the same vision, like you, Dr. Sean, myself, and all the others, you want to get, I don't want to feel like I'm leaving anything in the tank. That will trouble me. That will trouble me beyond belief, like I left something. No, it needs to be completely, I need to evacuate everything that I have, and then that's it, And when you gel these concepts, what I just mentioned, that's really, to me, the way I view being more today is that it's like I cannot leave anything in the tank. Everything I need to maximize what I'm here for, what I'm good at. I want to give as much of it as I can. I also know that things are multifactorial, so I have to envelope all these other constraints into one and create the best outcome possible when we think about that. And to me, that's being more today. You can't, again, I'd be remiss if what I look like, I wouldn't be where you and I wouldn't be where we are today if there was like I'm going to chill type of swag. I'm going to chill type of attitude. Why? When you have so much more, like to me, that's almost like selfish in some type of way to you know what I mean? Like, no. So anyway, there's a very roundabout way of saying being more today is putting yourself out there, maximizing what you have, and using good time management to make sure that you're able to do all that you can and keep your head on straight, with all things considered.
Well said. Well said. Dr. Civil, what's next for Civil PT? What's the next step?
Great question, buddy. The next step is, maybe I should have mentioned this when you asked about challenges. The next step is to definitely jump off into a brick and mortar space, because one of the challenges that I didn't mention is, you kind of get tired. I don't know if tired is not the right word. What I find myself is getting annoyed with not being able to have a physical location for the people that need it. You know what I mean? There are some, if we're talking about our sedentary arthritic patient that really just needs to navigate within the home, that's not where my frustration lies with what I just mentioned. It's the people that are a little bit more active, that need, that need the plinth, or table for people who don't know what a plinth is. A table for you to do certain stretches on, certain weights or free space that you probably don't have the luxury of having within the home or in an office. And I mentioned I did have access to a gym, but it's not like it wasn't my gym. So it was just using the space. So what's next to conquer that current frustration? What's next is to really have a brick and mortar space and to grow, as mentioned, having more of a team around me, hiring to do a lot of the things that I do on my own that I need to, I need to outsource or insource, hire somebody to come in and do it. That's what's next, Sean. That's the next step. Definitely having a brick and mortar physical location. Okay.
All right. So we'll look out for that hopefully in the future. Sounds very, very exciting. And where can people follow you on social media or otherwise?
Absolutely. So I'm on Instagram. You can find me at Civil, CIVIL _PT, physical therapy. I'm also on Instagram. Just search Civil PT. Excuse me, did I say Instagram? I'm also on Facebook. So I'll say that over again. Sorry, guys. Instagram, Civil _PT. Facebook, Civil PT. And the website is www.civil-pt.com.
Awesome. Dr. Civil, thank you so much for being on the show. You made episode 81 one for the books. We appreciate your time and we love stuff you're doing in the community. Keep it up, sir. You're doing a great job.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Lucky number 81, Mamba mentality, man.
That's right. Look at that. Absolutely. And folks, don't forget the quotes from today. Your discomfort isn't always trustworthy. When you move beyond the safety of your comfort zone, you will not feel comfortable. That is where your growth lies. And Dr. Civil said it very, very pointedly today. A lot of the things he's been doing, although they didn't always feel comfortable, he's been doing it, right? Doing your own practice is not always the first thought, but he went out there, he did it. Doing it during a pandemic, went out there, did it. And he's still giving quality care to patients, connected with his community, his environment, continuing to grow, and even looking for other ways to grow the business and his practice. And it's just an awesome way to see the journey that happens when we go out of our comfort zone and get it done. So he's inspired me today to continue my pursuit to be where he is. And I'm going to continue to push forward into next year, 2022, with the same intentions, the same goals to make sure that we can always go out there and be more today. Folks, thank you so much for joining us for episode 81 of Be More Today show. As always, you can go on our website, BeMoreToday.com, for my book, which is on Amazon also. Our More Swag store, which is open with some new swag, so check it out. And of course, our podcast is going to be on YouTube as always, and on all of your favorite podcast platforms. As I always say, if you want to email me or get in contact with our guests, send me emails to Dr. Sean at BeMoreToday.com or on any of our social media platforms as well. And as always, folks, have a good day, have a good night, have a great life, and continue to take your steps to greatness to be the best version of you. We will see you next week. Peace.